so excited to talk to you on our little podcast and not like around the dinner table.
I know. Thanks for having me. This is very different. I've never talked to you digitally before.
I know there are so many people in our digital lives where we're like, I've only spoken to you with a screen in front of us, and we are the opposite.
Yeah.
Which I love, which I adore. I want to talk to you about all things cooking, your incredible new cookbook, Sabai, which I cooked from immediately and loved. But I feel like we should start for anyone who doesn't know you somehow, your 1.7 million YouTube followers. But in case someone is new to you, I want to talk about like how you got started in all this and like what led you to becoming a chef. Like, what was little Pailin like growing up? What was the role of food in your life?
I have always loved food and cooking. Like it was just like naturally drawing me in. So I always found myself just hanging around in the kitchen. I grew up in Thailand and we had a live-in nanny who also cooked all of our meals. So in my free time, I would just hang out and just see what I can do. So I started with tasks like making coconut milk from scratch because that was the only way we got coconut milk back then. And it was this laborious task that looking back now, none of the adults probably wanted to do, but I just thought it was so fun because it was like you get to squish all these messy things, and pounding curry paste in a mortar and pestle, like everything was homemade. So I got to like really experience the joy of cooking in that way. And then as I got older, I became more involved in the actual cooking. And then it just never really left me. I always had been so fascinated. And I spent 1 year in New Zealand as on sort of like an exchange when I was a teenager. And my homestay mother, she just messaged me to wish me happy birthday a few weeks ago. And she said, I still remember when you were in my pantry reading all of my cookbooks. And I did that. I had never seen cookbooks before in my life until that time. Because like growing up in Thailand, we didn't have cookbooks. So I found a stack of cookbooks in the pantry and I just loved them so much. I sat down and I read them, and my homestay mother was so like, she was so concerned that that's what I was doing with my time, that this wasn't normal for kids. She was trying to get
things kids could get into. She's worried about the cookbooks.
Yeah, I think she thought it was just weird. It's like, why are you sitting in the pantry reading cookbooks? Like, don't you want to go and play? But I just always loved it. And so, but when I was exposed to cooking shows, I really, really wanted to do cooking shows. Like I was really inspired by, Nigella Lawson and Jamie Oliver and the big celebrity chefs of the time. And that's kind of the dream that I had, was to be a cooking show host.
Which is how I met you, which we'll get to in a second. But you came to Vancouver not to go to culinary school. You went to UBC. So what did you study at UBC?
I studied nutritional sciences, and I think we overlapped a couple of years also, even though we didn't know it back then. Yeah. And to be honest, I studied nutritional sciences looking back, probably because it was the only food related major that existed. If I had known that I could have gone to culinary school straight out of high school, I would have. But I didn't know about culinary school at the time. And so I thought if I wanted to study food, this was the only way to do it. I was very interested in health. I was very interested in the whole thing. So I still had a good time. But my real interest was in cooking it, not so much what happens to it after it has entered your body, which is what you're interested in.
After you break it down and make it completely devoid of like excitement and art and pleasure, just the basic
I want
nutrients.
food. I want to talk about food before it goes into my body.
Well, and it's so incredible that, thinking about your fascination with cookbooks and cooking shows and the fact that, in your family, all those recipes were just held in people's minds, right? Mm-hmm. Like the idea of those traditional recipes being passed down. And like, I remember with my grandmother, like she never wrote anything down. Like her sweetbread recipe passed with her because she defied any attempts. Like, can we videotape? Like, thing, like, because it was how her mother taught her, and it was how
Oh
she
my.
did. And if the weather was a little different that day, like she made the bread a little different because the dough is going to respond differently. Like it was
Right, right.
just, it is so different how we are like obsessed with, you know, documenting like the food blogs and the cookbooks, and we pour over them when really, cooking was just, it was something that was passed down.
Yeah. And this is why I have made it a mission to make a video out of all of my grandmother's signature dishes. And they're not like signature dishes, they're just things that she cooked a lot, right?
Yeah.
And she doesn't, she's like 95 or something, very old now. And I know that I may never eat her cooking again. And so I want to remember them, and I'm not so concerned about like, is this the exact thing that she made? I'm more concerned about, will this dish remind me of her?
Yeah.
So because there's no way to get it exactly the way she made it, and not to mention, I mean, like some of the things I would do differently because I think it would be better differently, right? And so it's not the point to like get it exactly, but it's the point to preserve the memory of it.
Yeah. And being able to take what you learned and then build on it, particularly
Right.
with your training as a chef. Like, how did you choose what culinary school to go to? And when was the moment where you're like, okay, so nutrients are super duper boring. Like, I want to learn, I want to see what these chefs can teach me. Like, how did you end up at culinary
So,
school?
after graduating, I couldn't find a job related to nutrition, and I was an international student. So, like, my existence in Canada depended on me finding a nutrition related job. But I managed to somehow, like, convince these people who were hiring me basically as a chef for a summer
Mm.
camp to fudge the application that it had to do with nutrition, that like they wanted somebody who was knowledgeable about kids nutrition and all that stuff. So anyway, my first job was cooking at a summer camp. And then and I was delighted. And then I started working in a catering company, and then the rules and regulations had softened by then, that like, okay, like you can get a job that's not directly related to your field of study, and you can stay in Canada. Praise the Lord. So I was able to stay in Canada, and I was working in catering in restaurants. And then that was when I realized I really, really love this. Like I wanted to take this further. And I've always been a great student. I love learning. I'd be in school forever, all my life if I could. And so I thought I should go to culinary school. And then I decided to go to San Francisco. Um, I actually got accepted to the CIA in New York, but then I looked at the weather and there was like snowstorms and all sorts of like, the reason I'm in Vancouver and not Nova Scotia is because I don't like the cold. And then I thought, oh man, like life is going to be so miserable. And I thought that there's way more to food than what you learn in school. So then I thought, okay, what's a good foodie city? Because there are culinary schools everywhere. What is a good foodie city? Because you learn so much just from being out and about as well. And then somebody mentioned San Francisco, and I thought, perfect. And there was a Le Cordon Bleu in San Francisco, and everything just worked out. And so I was like, all right, let's do it.
So cool. It is true. San Francisco is a good food town.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. How many years did you spend there?
I think 3. I went to school for 1 and then worked for 2. And then I came back to Canada because I got permanent residency here and because I had met a man that was from Vancouver.
And now you are stuck outside of the tropics forever.
Exactly.
So when did your YouTube start? So you have this incredible, like anyone who wants to learn, and obviously if you're listening to this, you want to learn more about how to cook Thai food, but like if you have any curiosity, Pailin's YouTube channel is incredible. Like not just the recipes, but you also go into like tools and techniques and even like your shop, like what you bought in Thailand. Like I love that. So how did it start? Was it born of like, okay, so I have this dream of a cooking show. I love these big celebrity chefs. Like, should I try and do it myself?
So The reason I was so drawn towards cooking shows was I love to cook, and I also had a knack for public speaking. Like I loved to present things to the public. Like in school, most people, like most kids, like did not want to get up in front of the room and like present their project or whatever. Like I did really well in that. And I love to teach. I always had a knack for teaching. I was teaching piano when I was a teenager. So the cooking show just seemed like the perfect combination of all of those things. You get to teach cooking, and you get to present. Like it seemed to me like this is all the things that I like combined into one. And so when the YouTube and at the time the only way to have a cooking show was to be on TV, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like, how do you do that? You know, how do you apply to be Nigella Lawson? Like, where do you
Yeah.
go? And so it wasn't really a realistic dream, right? So I just kind of pursued being a chef instead. But when YouTube came along, it was my brother who told me, you know, you keep talking about wanting to have a cooking show. You should just do it on YouTube. And then maybe somebody would discover me on YouTube and then put you on TV. And then I thought it was the most brilliant idea I've ever heard, because like, oh my God, like now I can do the thing I wanted to do without waiting to be discovered or without waiting for anybody's approval. Like I can just go and do it. And I started right away. I thought nothing of it. I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. I had so much fun. And eventually it started to grow. And then becoming on TV was no longer a thing that I felt I needed, because it wasn't the TV that I wanted. It was the cooking show. And so I already had the cooking show. So then the TV thing just kind of like, oh, that's not relevant anymore. And so I decided to then build a career around my YouTube channel.
And what was that like at the start? I think that, you know, even now, I mean, young people are all like, I want to be a content creator. I want to be a YouTuber. Like my 7-year-old specifically is like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm like, holy heck. All right, kid, you and
So cute.
billions of other people. But like, what was it like to actually get started? Like, how did you grow the channel? Was it that you were doing something really different from everyone else out there? Or were you like, oh no, here's specifically like I was hammering this many videos, or I was reaching out in this way?
So I did not start with an intention to grow. And I think that is actually key to my longevity on the platform. The people who started when I did had no idea what YouTube could be. So we all started because we loved it. We had a passion. Nobody wanted to become a YouTuber at the time, right? And so I think that's really important, because it means you're starting it because you enjoy the thing and not because you're trying to get somewhere. So that's really important. But I was doing it off and on as a hobby in the beginning, and the channel just kind of naturally grew. At the time, I think I was the only person doing Thai food. And there were a couple others, but you know, nothing serious, right? And when I realized, I think this was around 2012, when I started to see that, oh, people's YouTube channels were becoming a way to make a living, then I thought, okay, well, maybe if I do this more seriously, more frequently, then the channel could grow. And by that time, I had a sizable following already, but it wasn't monetized. Like the following was just the following, and then I started posting more consistently, starting with once every 2 weeks I would post, and then as opposed to once every 3 months, 6 months, 2 weeks, or whatever I was doing at the time. So it was once every 2 weeks, and then that was a thing. That was the event that made me see the growth in the channel very quickly. I think something in the algorithm maybe realized that, oh, like this channel is regularly posting now. This is a serious channel. Let's push it out to more people. So the consistency really led my channel to grow. I should say that this is algorithm of 2012. Who knows what?
Which is very different than the 2023
yes,
algorithm.
exactly. So don't take this as like advice for growing your channel today. There's so much more to it now. But yeah, frequency really did it. And then I upped it to once a week. And then in my peak years, I was doing 6 a month, which is crazy. Like,
Wow.
that's what you can do when you have no child. And then I had a child. And now I'm back to once every 2 weeks.
But also you have this incredible library of content that, even if someone is new to discover you, they're going to have so many things
Yes.
to watch before they even get to the point where like, okay, I'm caught up. I'm like waiting for the new videos now.
Oh, I don't think anyone is caught up. I have like 500 videos. You'd have to do a lot of watching to get caught up on all my videos.
I feel like you underestimate the depth of the rabbit hole that people can get into
Maybe,
on YouTube.
yeah.
And
Maybe.
then, once you built this incredible platform for yourself to teach people how to cook, at the very minute where it didn't, I guess, really matter to you as a goal, you were offered a TV show, One World Kitchen.
Yeah, I know. Just as soon as I stopped looking for TV opportunities, the TV came looking, which was really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, One World Kitchen, which is a cooking show on Gusto TV in Canada that was about international cuisine. So there were 5 hosts from 5 different cultures, and so we each did like a segment of 6 episodes around our cuisine. So I did 2 seasons of that, and that was a really good experience. I learned a lot. I met great people. I met you, Desiree, who also had a show, another show on Gusto. So that was a really good experience. But having done both, I would choose YouTube over TV anytime because I have so much more control. I can do as much as I want, as little as I want. I can talk about whatever subject I want. With TV, you always like are catering towards the mainstream audience. And also like if I do Thai food, there are only so much I can do on TV. You know what I mean? Like the TV
Yeah.
is not really ready to dive into such a niche cuisine like Thai food that you think they would be by now, but it's
Yeah.
still not. Um, so, which by the way, I had no idea at the time that being Thai was going to work very hard against me to get on any sort of TV show. I was very innocent and naive about all of that. I did not think about that at all as a factor. But now looking back, it's like, oh, you had no chance, girl. Like you had no chance to be on Food Network. Until till this day, I'm still not on Food Network, right?
Food
Food
Network.
Network
Do you hear
is
us right now?
they're still not ready for this level of, like maybe they'll do Indian, maybe they'll do Chinese. Like Thai I think is a little much for them. um
Yeah.
but so I'm really thankful for YouTube, which has really opened the doors to all sorts of creators from all sorts of backgrounds, and they can build their own audience because the audience exists, right? It's just that the people in the mainstream media are not willing to acknowledge them as an audience that's
And
worth tapping into.
and that you have a global reach as well,
Exactly.
as opposed to like our tiny little market here in Canada. You have this absolutely global reach. So let's talk about Thai food,
Yes.
and dive into, sort of the richness and the diversity of it. Because I think being here in Canada, exactly like you said, like just like what can I show on TV? I feel like here in Canada, as much as many of us love Thai food, it's very much something we eat in restaurants. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how accurate a representation is the food we get in Thai restaurants here in Canada versus, what you would eat at home in Thailand?
The dishes are representative, the flavors are not.
Ooh.
So like, you see green curry, red curry, and all those things. And all those things are things that we eat in Thailand. But they don't taste the same.
Hmm.
And that was actually my original frustration that led me to create Hot Thai Kitchen. Was I'd been in North America for quite some time. I had eaten at many Thai restaurants, and it was just like none of these places make food the way that we do in Thailand. What is the deal? Like, why is this so hard? It's not that hard. Why are they not doing it? I didn't understand at the time. I do now, like why restaurants made Americanized Thai food and all this stuff. But at the time, I was just like, this is not so hard. Doesn't it taste right? And so I was frustrated, and that was one of the things that always was the guiding light for my YouTube channel. It was like, I need to make food exactly as I would eat it in Thailand. I'm not making compromises. I'm not like diluting this, dumbing this down for anybody, because then I'm not really adding to the conversation.
Yeah.
So the food is, on the whole, I would say not great and I don't want to put down restaurants. I need to be clear on this. They taste good, and that's why they're there. That's why people
Yeah.
like them. But they don't taste the same as what you'd get in Thailand. Okay, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Things are changing now. I see newer restaurants run by newer generations that are doing things more, that are more true to their roots, more true to Thai food. And so I think things are changing for the better, but it's still got some ways to go.
Yeah. Who are
Yeah.
some people, I'll put you on the spot, who are some people who you think are doing it really right now?
Restaurant wise?
Yeah.
So in the US, the first restaurant that was doing it well was Pak Pak. I don't know if you know them.
Pok Pok is so,
Yeah.
oh no, I've been there. It's very good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're no longer around. But Pak Pak was like revolutionary for Thai food in America because they actually made food taste like the way they do in Thailand. And that's why it was so popular. And the irony of it is that the chef is a white dude, right? Like Andy Ricker,
Yeah.
who, by the way, blurbed my book, and I'm
Yeah.
forever grateful for that. Like, it was a white dude. And you know why? And it makes sense. This is not weird. It's not a coincidence, because he, as a white guy, couldn't just come in and start making Thai food that is not, um, that tastes Americanized, right? He had something to prove. He had to do his homework. He didn't have the privilege of just being Thai and then just making whatever, and it would be fine. No, he had to really prove that he knew what he was doing, and he had a real love for Thai food. And so I think Pok Pok really kickstarted this wave of more, I'm going to use the word authentic Thai cuisine, which is a loaded word, but I think we all know
Yeah.
what I mean. And so now, aside from that, in Vancouver, there's Anchai. Have you been to Anchai?
I have not, and now immediately it's the top of my list.
Yeah, and they are also doing really, really bold flavors. Like, they're not shy about it at all. They're making their own curry paste. It's a mom and pop shop. Mae Nam is actually not bad in Vancouver, but it's more of a fine dining place. So it's not as accessible, but they have good flavors, and they're also revolutionary in a sense that they started doing more modern Thai food, more like, they present it in a different way, in a more because before, Thai food was just cheap takeout. Like, it was in the land of cheap takeout forever. And I think Mae Nam was the first who said, this can be refined, this can be elegant, this can be something you go for a nice occasion. And they kind of broke the mold for Thai food in that way as well. So yeah, so there are lots of places doing that. And I know in Atlanta, there's a Talat market in Atlanta that I've never been, but I can just tell. Like, I can just tell by looking at their food whether it's going to be good. There's Fish Cheeks in New York City that's doing great food. I mean, it's happening, but it's taking time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is so interesting what you said about Andy Richter, because yeah, I agree. They'd be like, "Who's this white guy making Thai food?" And
Mm-hmm.
then you have, like, in Vancouver, we have, quite a famous restaurant for everyone who's listening, called Vidge's, and Vikram
Yes.
Vidge, who is Indian and has taken this sort of like modern fine dining take, very influenced by sort of like French techniques with Indian cuisine. And I know a lot of my Indian friends is like, Psh, like, that's not Indian food. Like, that's not how we
Right.
make it. That's not how we do it. But it is his culture. He's creating his own take on the food that he grew up with, versus someone from outside the culture being like, here's what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, Mae Nam did get a lot of that also, about, like, with Thai people saying that's not real Thai food or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but who said that Thai food can only be a certain way, right? And if you were to go to Thailand, there's just hundreds of restaurants doing all this modernized, fine dining Thai food, and no one's complaining that that's not Thai food, right? Everyone
Yeah.
in Thailand is saying this is all very nice. So I think it's just the fact that they're here. There's a certain responsibility, like the people who live here want the restaurants to remind them of home, and when it doesn't, they're a little bit upset. And I get that.
Yeah.
But also, like, food has got to evolve. And if anything, it should remind us of home more, that it's like that it's keeping up with the times.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
it speaks to that, like, sort of like deep place that a meal fills in our hearts, how like that thing that our grandmother made, or the food that we always make at a celebration, like how those flavors and that experience of eating a dish instantly connects us to the times we ate that dish before.
Yes. Which is why if I want to like eat Thai food, I would go to Anchai, right? Like, because they make like homey Thai food. But if I like want to take someone from out of town and it's like a nice dinner, then I don't mind going to Mainam, because that's like a more, a nice place you can go and have a nice cocktail with your Thai meal if you want to. And they serve two different purposes.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I want to ask you a question. I feel like we should start by talking about Sabai, your new cookbook, which I absolutely love. So you have your first cookbook, Hot Thai Kitchen, and then Sabai is more about how to show you how to bring Thai cooking into your everyday. Like, this is Thai cuisine you're going to make on a Tuesday night, for example. So tell us a little bit about this new book.
Yeah. So my first book I wrote, if you read it, it's like a textbook on Thai food, and I wasn't concerned about how weeknight friendly the recipes are. I was really more concerned about, like, let's talk about what Thai food is, right, and what the dishes are, and all the basics that go into Thai cooking. But the next step to that is, okay, now that you know a little bit more about Thai food, let's help you make it a bit more of a regular thing. Because I think for many people, if they're going to cook Thai food at all, it's still like a weekend project kind of thing. It's like, it seems like a lot. It seems like you gotta go get all the ingredients and all this stuff. And then when you navigate recipes, people don't really know which one is easy. Like, even if you were to go on my website, right, it's not clear which one is fast, which one is simple, which one is difficult. So the Sabai, what I wanted it to be was pre-screened. Like, all the recipes are pre-screened for simplicity and weeknight friendliness. So you grab it off the shelf, you know that you turn to any page, and anything that catches your eye, that's doable on a weeknight. So that's what I wanted Sabai to be, because I realized that I didn't have that before. I have the YouTube channel, I have the website, but how does anyone know where to start? So I wanted Sabai to be like, okay, this is where you start, because all of these are going to be simpler than something else that you might find on the internet.
And using, what I love is that you still have a lot of things that you can do yourself. Like you talked about growing up, and curry paste was always made, fresh, and making the coconut milk yourself. And so I love that you talk in this book not only how to do some things yourself, like making the tamarind paste, for example. And I got my block of tamarind. I was like so excited. But also, this is the good coconut milk, because we're not all going to make coconut milk at home, and that it's okay to use curry paste sometimes as well.
Yes. Oh, it's okay to use store-bought curry paste all the time. If you never make Thai curry paste from scratch ever, there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, if there's anything you shouldn't make by yourself, like, unless you're really hardcore, it's curry paste. Because one, in order to make it well, you got to have all the ingredients. So if you start making substitutions because, oh, I can't find this, can't find that, then already the flavor is going to be wrong. So I'd rather you start with a good paste that has all the right flavor than trying to make it yourself and then making all these substitutions, and then it ends up tasting different, right? So making curry paste, I think it's like making a sourdough bread, right? You do it
Hmm.
because you want to do it. You do it because it's the experience and the pride, not because you don't have a bakery down the block and you just go buy. It's probably better than what you're making, right? But that's not the point. You make it because you want to make it. So curry paste is the same way for me.
I love that. Okay, I want to ask you your favorite brand of curry paste because I in next year's book I made a red curry and same thing. It was meant to be just like a very simple,
Yeah.
like red curry with vegetables. And I tasted so many curry pastes because the first time I made it, I was like, "This is incredible! I love this, so delicious." The next time, because where I shop, they never have the same thing twice, which is really weird. And so I bought this other curry paste, and the curry tasted not good. I was like,
Mm.
dang it, what did I do? Did I make a mistake? And then I tasted it. I was like, oh, it's the curry paste. Bloody hell,
Hmm.
it's not as delicious. So, like, what's your favorite brand of curry paste that you find here?
So, first of all, I do have a video that I where I did a blind taste test of 5 most commonly found brands on in the market in Vancouver. And
I
I
will
think in
link it.
North America is the same. So I did a blind taste test. Like I had my favorite, but I wanted to know if my favorite is actually my favorite or is it because I've been using it for years and years. Um, and so of the 5, I'll give you the spoiler. My favorite is Maploy, and Maploy
Mm.
um, is is great because it also comes in single use pack as well as big tubs. But Maploy is not vegan; it has shrimp paste in it. So
Mm.
my second favorite, and it's very close. Right, these two things are very close, so they're almost interchangeable. My second favorite that is vegan is Aroidi. Yeah, so that's the one that's good. And then another one that I really like also contains shrimp paste is Nam Chai. So these 3, Maploy, RID, and Nam Chai are you can't go wrong with these. Um, and RID is the only one that's vegan. And then another one that's really popular is in the tiny tin, like looks like cat food.
Mm.
And that's messy and it's fine, but it is more diluted and you need to use more of it. And it's vegan also. And this is my problem with curry paste is like it's very hard for me to give an like, oh, use 3 to 4 tablespoons of this curry paste. But then if you end up using Thai Kitchen, which is a very popular brand in like Western grocery stores, their stuff is so diluted that you need to use like twice at least what I call for in order to like make it taste the same. But like I can't make a recipe that covers all brands of curry paste that you can possibly find. So I just like make some recommendations in the ingredients section and hopefully people get that one and hopefully people can make adjustments. But yeah.
And it speaks to the importance of taste.
Yes.
Taste your food. Like, I
Yes.
think often when people are novice cooks, they make it exactly as the recipe says, and then they get to it and they sit down and like, oh, I don't like the taste of this. Even though, like,
Yeah.
at multiple points in the recipe, you could have stopped. You could have been like, does this taste right? And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's
Mm-hmm.
flat. Oh, okay, I could add some
Yes.
lime juice. Or like, oh, it's not this red curry paste has no flavor. Like, I can add
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate the variations between kitchen to kitchen, ingredient to ingredient, that you think you're following the recipe, but really there are so many things that was happening in your kitchen that's very different from what's happening in the kitchen of the person who wrote the recipe. You should never assume that just because you think you followed the recipe, it should turn out exactly as it should.
Yeah. And we all have
Mhm.
different tastes as well,
Yes,
too. So
yes.
So I feel like this is the perfect time to continue along this ingredient route because Sabai has this wonderful list of Thai ingredients that you helpfully say these ones are essential, these ones are a little less essential. Can you give us a bit
Mhm.
of a Cole's notes on the few essential ingredients you're like, you have to have these to make really delicious Thai food?
Yes. So the 3 sauces, I call them the trinity of stir fry sauces that you should have is fish sauce, soy sauce, and oyster sauce. And nowadays, there are actually vegan versions of both fish sauce and oyster sauce that are actually quite good. I haven't had a good experience with vegan fish sauce just yet, but vegan oyster sauce definitely, I think they're quite good out on the market. So these sauces, if you have them, you're solid. And then coconut milk is something you definitely should have, lasts forever. curry paste, your favorite curry paste. You should have that in your pantry. And then curry paste can be used in so many more ways than just a curry. So don't think of it as a curry paste. Think of it as just a flavor paste, a herb and spices paste. And I put it in like ground meat mixture to make sausages and things like that too. So there's so many things. You can make stir fries with it. It's one of my favorite things to do with it. And then palm sugar, but if you don't have palm sugar, light brown sugar works totally fine in most cases. And then tamarind. And tamarind is widely available these days. I think wherever you are, you can probably source it. If not, online sources are abundant. I prefer making it from the pulp, which comes in that brown block I think we've all seen. But if you don't want to do that, the pre-made stuff that comes in a jar ready to use, that'll work also.
Amazing. And that's a really small list of ingredients. And many of them, like the fish sauce and like the oyster sauce, like people probably already have. Like if they cook quite a bit, like they probably already have those in their fridge.
Yeah, exactly. And they last forever, right? This is something you buy once and they're really inexpensive. So there should be no reason why your fridge door should not be lined with these sauces.
My fridge door and my entire top shelf. I've got a lot of condiments happening in my fridge.
Yes, me too.
So that brings us to probably the next natural place, which is veganizing Thai food. So your book is not vegan, but you have a lot of recipes that are either easily veganizable with like a swap the fish sauce or swap tofu for chicken or some actual vegan recipes. So you mentioned about the vegan oyster sauce and the fish sauce, but you have a recipe for veganized fish sauce.
No.
Do you not? Oh,
No.
I thought you did. What was one of the ones, or maybe you linked to one for some reason, because I feel like I remember.
I have linked to one in one of my posts.
Okay.
Andrea Nguyen has a recipe for vegan fish sauce.
Amazing. I will link to that in the show notes.
Yes.
Because it is easy to make yourself.
Yes. However, I feel that for most Thai recipes, if you just substitute soy sauce for fish sauce, it is fine. Like you don't need to, because most homemade fish sauce is going to be using soy sauce as a base anyway. Yeah. Right? And so I'm just like, unless you're really just going to use, unless you feel particularly attached to the idea of vegan fish sauce, just substituting soy sauce works magic. However, I recommend try mixing up even 2 different kinds of soy sauces. So for example, Maggi seasoning. Do you know Maggi? Yeah, if you combine soy sauce with a little Maggi, it will create something that's a little bit different. And now maybe that is your soy sauce, your fish sauce substitute. So for example, there's a Thai dish called lap, which is a salad made of ground meat, and it typically is seasoned with only fish sauce. In my vegan lap, I use a combination of soy sauce and Golden Mountain seasoning, which is basically the Thai version of Maggi seasoning. And that combination is delicious, right? So there's no need to like go and make a vegan fish sauce. I mean, you can try to buy them if you'd like. But if you're just wanting something easy, I think using whatever you've already got will be fine.
Well, and I think that's so helpful too for people who, pick up the book and they're like, oh, I want to do it just right. And to hear from you and be like, it's okay. You can just use a little soy sauce and it'll be delicious.
And if it makes you feel any better, there is no vegan fish sauce that you could possibly make that would make it taste like fish sauce. It is not possible, right? For you to make a sauce to taste like fish that doesn't have fish in it. So just give up on the idea altogether.
You're like, this is the gimme. You're vegan. This is the gimme. Just
I think, and I'm not saying that vegan fish sauce has no place in your kitchen. But I think what people are trying to do is creating another sauce that doesn't quite taste like soy sauce, so you can use both in different applications. And yes, totally, there's definitely room for that. But if you're trying to make a recipe and it calls for fish sauce and you don't want to have to like go and make a whole nother recipe just to make this recipe, just use the soy sauce. It's fine.
What are some other things we might come across? Like, what about like a shrimp paste, or like, what are some other things we might need to be like, okay, that's a flavor note that's going to be missing. Like, how do I swap something else in?
Yes. So shrimp paste, miso paste is a really good substitute for that. Miso paste, or the Korean doenjang, which is the Korean version of miso. It's salty, it's umami, and the texture is more or less the same. Oyster sauce is the vegan oyster sauce that's out on the market right now is great. Lee Kum Ki has a good version, as well as the Healthy Boy, which is a Thai brand. But however, vegan oyster sauce are never labeled as vegan oyster sauce. They're always labeled as vegetarian stir fry sauce, or like vegetarian mushroom sauce, or something ambiguous like that. But if it looks like oyster sauce and it's sitting next to the other oyster sauces, it's supposed to be an oyster sauce substitute. um so that's what that's what you need to look for. It will not say vegan or vegetarian oyster sauce. And then what else would there be? I mean, basically those are your big, right? Oyster sauce, fish sauce, and shrimp paste. Shrimp paste isn't really a thing. Oh, speaking of miso, if you want to do a fish sauce substitute, you could even do like a combination of soy sauce and miso and thin it out with a little bit of water. Like you're just trying to get something that's a little bit different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like miso is another source of salty umami. Whatever is your source of salty umami, you can try to substitute for fish sauce. So when I teach people how to veganize Thai food, is you need to think about the role of that ingredient in that dish. So, what is the role of fish sauce? It provides salt, it provides umami. Okay, so what can you have that is also salty and also umami that you can put in this situation? So, soy sauce, miso work just fine. With oyster sauce, it's a little bit more complex because it's salty. It's also a little bit sweet. It has a little bit of texture, but it also has umami. So if you think about the ingredient not as what it is, but what it is providing to the dish, then you can make the substitution.
And that's where you're thinking like a chef. Because, like,
Yes.
I think a lot of us don't think that way. And particularly when we're cooking for ourselves and we're like, oh, it doesn't taste quite right. Like, you're not thinking about like, oh, this is the salt, or this is the umami, or here's some acid, or here's a bit of sweet. But like all of
Mm-hmm.
those things are your tools to sort of like adjust to your taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have a surprising number of vegetarian and vegan followers, and for the longest time, I didn't understand why, because I don't make vegan food at all, really. I mean, very rarely do I put it on the channel, but I have all these people who watch. And I think what it is Thai food doesn't, it rarely is like all about the meat, right? It has so much herbs and spices and vegetables and all these other things that people can sort of take the idea and just substitute out the meat, and it will still give you something that is delicious and quite Thai in its identity, right? So like we rarely sit down with like a piece of steak and a side
Yeah.
of mashed potato, right? It's like, no, usually our dishes, there's so much else going on that the meat isn't really the star. You know, like I have an for example, a dish in Sabai called Three Flavored Fish. And it's pan-seared fish with this sauce that is sweet, salty, sour, and spicy. It's super delicious. But it doesn't have to be on fish, right? You can substitute any sort of vegan protein that you like, and the dish will still maintain that identity. So I think for vegetarians and vegans, they look at Thai food as something that is easily substitutable without like completely stripping it of its identity. Like there's so much else going on. So yeah, if you are definitely looking to expand your repertoire of dishes, Thai food is a really good one to start with.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
especially because up until the last few years, I think vegetarians and vegans are not used to having cookbooks cater to them anyways. And
Right.
so the idea that you would go to a cookbook so that you can expand your palette of flavors and textures and techniques, like, well, I have to transition this to vegetarian or vegan anyways because I'm used to
Mm-hmm.
doing it, because like there
Yeah.
are not a lot of exciting, it really is only in the last few years. Like vegetarian and vegan cookbooks would always be the same thing. It would be like frittata and chia puddings and like blah, and like I even found myself like I was always looking at other cookbooks because I was like, I want flavors. Like I want, like,
Right,
teach me
right,
how to make something. I know how to make a chia pudding. Like teach me how to make
right.
something different.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I want to talk about rice as well,
Yes.
because you had an awesome video that was like how to eat Thai food correctly,
Hmm.
and that really sort of like spoke to the primary place of rice on the plate. So can
Hmm.
you tell us a little bit about the role of rice in Thai cuisine? What kind of rice is it? And like,
Hmm.
how do you believe we should be cooking our rice?
So the rice that we eat in Thai cuisine is jasmine rice, jasmine white rice. Um, and a lot of people, I think, especially from the Western world, look at rice like it's a side dish,
Mm.
like it's something, akin to mashed potatoes, where you've got your main thing and then you've got a pile of carbs on the side. And the two kind of exist independently. Like you can have just plain mashed potato and then the next bite you can have something else. But that's not how rice works in, I would say, Asian cuisine, not just Thai. Rice is the foundation of your meal. Like every bite that you take contains rice in it. So all of our food, the curries, the stir fries, even, the soup and salad, they're all meant to be eaten with rice together in one bite. That's not to say that if you wanted to take just a straight bite of your salad, you can't do that. But you can also, but most people would have it together with their rice.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why Thai food is so flavorful, because it's going to be mellowed out by the rice. So it's very, very important. And this is also why we don't put any seasoning in the rice. I made a video a while back, how to cook rice properly. And I got a few comments like, you don't put salt in your rice? You don't put butter in your rice? And I was like, what are you talking about? You put salt in your rice? What's wrong? You know what I mean? And I was like, we're coming from completely different paradigm here. Because again, I didn't get it at the time, but now I
Mm.
do. It's like they're thinking of rice as a side dish. Like you wouldn't serve your mashed potatoes without seasoning, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as they were thinking about rice. How can you serve your rice without any seasoning? Well, because everything else is the seasoning. Like the other food that you're having it with, right?
My curry
But
is the seasoning.
exactly, but that took me a while to get why people were confused about it. And also, I think a lot of people are used to having really bad rice, like Uncle Ben's or whatever, that if it didn't have butter and seasoning, it would be completely inedible. um, and then what was the other question? How to cook
How to cook it
rice properly?
the right way. Because I feel like even after all these years, it's still a mystery why sometimes my rice turns out like perfection and sometimes it doesn't.
Hmm. Okay, so rule number one, every rice takes a different amount of water. So if you have this idea that, oh, 1 part rice to 2 parts water, whatever, throw that out the window. That does not apply to every rice. You have to think about what kind of rice that you're using. If you're using short grain Japanese rice, it's 1 to 1. If you're using jasmine rice, it's 1 to 1.25 to 1.5, depending on the rice. So it's not constant. So every time you buy a new bag of rice, you kind of have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to eat rice regularly at all, I highly recommend a rice cooker. They are one of the cheapest appliances you can get at the drugstore, and it will save you the headache. You can set it and let it go. It will save you the stove space. You can put it in your office if you want to. You know what I mean? Like it's just like one less thing you have to worry about. I grew up with every single Thai household has a rice cooker. I didn't realize you can cook rice outside of a rice cooker until I was older. I didn't think it was possible. I'd never seen rice come out of a not rice cooker in my life. But if you were to do it stovetop, so one, figuring out the amount of water is
Mm-hmm.
important. Two, rinsing your rice really well is also important. If you don't rinse your rice is going to turn out sticky and gummy because there's a lot of loose starch that you can see when you wash the rice. Your water becomes completely cloudy. Like think of that as flour in your rice, right? If you put flour in your rice is going to be all gooey and gummy, and that's what would happen. So that's why you want to rinse your rice. And then finally, if you're doing it stovetop, low heat, as low as you can possibly go. That will do two things. That'll cook the rice evenly, that will not excessively evaporate your water, and that will also buy you time between the rice being done and the rice being burnt. Right? So if I'm in a rush, what I'll do is I crank up the heat in the beginning to bring it to a simmer. Then once it's simmering, I turn it down, way down, as low as it can go, and then just leave it. And then if I don't get to it when it's done, 5 minutes late, because the heat is so low, it's not going to burn my rice so quickly.
I think you've just permanently changed how I make rice. Actually, already I changed my ratio because we eat mostly jasmine, sometimes basmati, but mostly jasmine because it's just my favorite. But the 1.25, 100% that ratio, like it changed things.
What are you using right now? What ratio are you using?
I was using 1 to 2.
I don't know where the 1 to 2 came from, to be honest with you. It is like this ingrained ratio that I hear getting thrown around. And I was like, I have never seen rice that takes 2 parts water. Like, that's a huge amount of water, and your rice would become wet.
But maybe it is a function of the fact that we also really cook it high too. Like we typically...
And so much evaporates, right? So that might be it. So when I went to culinary school, they also taught us that. 2 parts rice, 1 part water. And I remember looking at this other Asian guy in my class, and I was like, who does that, man? Like,
I'm going to listen to what you know, and then I'm going to do what I do, which is better.
Yeah. And so, yes. And if your rice says new crop, you have to put less water, because new crop rice hasn't been dried for as long as old crop rice. And new crop basically means this is rice from this year's harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And so it hasn't been dried for as long. So the grains are more moist, and so they don't absorb as much water. So if you buy a new bag of rice and you're like, I've been doing the same thing, and it's coming out too wet, it's probably the rice. So just reduce the amount of water. Or if you change your rice and it's coming out too dry, just add more next time. Like every time you start with a new bag, new brand, you kind of have to start over and be prepared to change.
Yeah. Well, and I love giving an ingredient like rice, particularly, as you said, like here in North America, it's very much treated just like a side dish. And, it is such an incredible food, and sort of giving it the time and attention that it deserves to make it just perfect will make everything you eat taste that much better. Okay, I feel like this is a great time to shift into our rapid fire. We end every episode with a few rapid fire questions that I keep a secret. They're softballs. They're nice. The first is your go-to comfort food.
Ooh, I would say rice, congee.
Well,
Congee, speaking of rice. So I put the classic Thai congee has ground pork. So the base of the stock is pork broth. And then we make this ground pork meatballs, basically meatballs, seasoned with garlic, white peppercorn, cilantro, fish sauce, soy sauce, a little bit of sugar. And then you just like roughly form them, cook them in the broth, and then adding. So I start with already cooked rice, adding the rice into the broth and just letting it kind of mush. It's so delicious, so comforting. We eat it for breakfast in Thailand.
Rice porridge is so good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sleep in or get a head start?
Oh my God. Sleep in 100%. I'm a late night person. Like it's
Are
genetic.
You?
All my family were like, if we have nothing to do, we'd go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at noon. Like that's what we would do. And my son is exactly the same way.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh, so how's that going for your sleep as a mama?
Oh my God. So I go to bed the same time as him. Like he's that late. Like he's a night owl. He goes to bed at 9:30, which for a 4-year-old is quite late. And then he'll wake up at 8 a.m. and he will take his sweet time getting out of bed. He's just like rolling around, and I'll be like, Khan, I'm going to get up now. Okay. He's like, okay. And then he just hangs out and just like lazes.
I love that. Are you kidding me?
And I hear all these stories of parents complaining that their kids just like wake them up at 6 a.m. and bright and early. No, he just like takes his time. And I'm like, you are a Chongchitnant, no question about it.
Oh my God, I love it. No, unfortunately, my kids took after I mean, it's my fault. I'm the problem. But yeah, they're early risers. And now that I'm like old and tired after being a parent for so long, I'm like, let me sleep until 8:30 or 9, please. And they're like 6 a.m. I'm like,
Oh
I'm
my
out.
God.
Yeah, fun. I will trade you any day. Um, the weirdest or most surprising thing about being a YouTube creator?
I've been so surprised by the generosity of viewers.
Hmm.
One thing that really surprised me was all these people who wanted to send me gifts because I have positively impacted their lives. It completely shocked me when it first happened, but it's happened multiple times since then. Like people who just like, I've learned so much from you. I really enjoy your show. I'd like to send you something. And I was like, oh my God, people do this? Like, this is
I had
incredible.
no idea.
Just the other day, somebody sent me a toy for my son because she just loved my like what I do so much. And I guess people feel this desire to give back. And I mean, they can buy my book, they can do all sorts of things, but they wanted it to be more personal, right? They wanted to give you something.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed at the people who have done this for nothing in return at all.
That is
Yeah,
very surprising.
it is. Yeah.
You consider like platforms like TikTok and the horrible cesspool of people telling you how much they hate you, even though they don't know you. Like, it is amazing to hear.
Yes, it is amazing to hear. And I think it also speaks to the kind of content that I make and the people who watch it, right? Like my content is educational and not just pure entertainment. And people can really make use of this information. And so they feel like, wow, like this person has made a difference in my life, even if it's just food. And they feel like they want to give back. And I thought at first it was a one-off. No, it has been multiple people who have wanted to do this. It's amazing.
That is so, so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One tip or ingredient or trick that will like make everyone's cooking better. You've already shared like a bunch, but like what's one more?
Okay. So retoast your store-bought nuts. This is something that I discovered that totally changed my life. You know, like you buy roasted cashews or roasted almonds or whatever, and they're not that good. They're not that crunchy. Try sticking them in the oven again for another 5 minutes. Get them a little bit darker, and you'll be shocked that the cashews become way crunchier. The almonds become toastier because I feel like commercially toasted nuts, they are a little bit conservative with how far they bring those. Right? Like they want to be like light roasted. But for many nuts, darker roast is actually really good. So, and also if it smells a little stale, it'll freshen them up. I also do the same thing, fried shallots. If you love fried shallots, you go to an Asian store, you just buy the ones that they sell in the bags, but those are usually pretty stale. Like who knows how long they've been fried. I rebake them in the oven and they'll shed a little bit of oil, which is even better. It makes them like lighter and they're crispier and they taste like new. So retoast everything.
I love it. And just for like 5 minutes. Like it's not even like a big
just
deal.
for 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Last one. What you're loving watching lately, whether it's like a traditional show or someone on YouTube, like what are you loving watching?
What am I loving watching? I mean, to be honest, I don't watch very much. But if I'm thinking of, oh man, I have no life.
I just run this incredible media business. I have a family, but I have no life. No, it's just that you're doing other things as opposed to being like me and wasting my time streaming.
Oh my gosh, what am I watching? I'll just tell you the last movie that I watched, which is quite incredible, on the plane, because it's the only time I watch movies. Yeah. It was Black Panther 2, which was incredible. It's like, talk about empowering women and women of color. Like, if that's something that you're interested in, that's something you want to see, that is a movie that will like make your heart swell.
And to be super corny, like as a mom, the fact that my kids are growing up where these kind of movies exist, that there is not only one kind of hero, one kind of main character,
Yes.
like makes me so, so happy.
Yes. 100%. Like this is totally unprecedented. Like I would never think this was possible, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And here's to where it's just the norm. And a whole generation doesn't think exactly like that. Oh, like I didn't know that that would be possible. It just needs to be
Mm-hmm.
normal.
Yes.
Pailin, thank you so much for
Oh, thank
sharing
you.
your awesome knowledge with us. Everyone needs to pick up a copy of your book. We will link it in the show notes, along with a couple of those videos we talked about. I hope everyone starts making Thai food at home because we all need to have it in our kitchens.
Can I plug one more thing?
Yes.
On my website, if people are struggling with finding ingredients, because that's like the biggest hurdle when people want to get into cooking Thai food is where do I go for these things? On my website, there is a map of Asian grocery stores around the world. And basically viewers just go on and they drop a pin of where they shop for Asian ingredients. So if you don't know where to go, just check the map. It's on my website, hotthaikitchen.com. And zoom into your area and see what's nearby. And people have also put notes about what they can find here. It's not just like a map. And so it's super, super useful if you're struggling to find ingredients. And sometimes you find like the hidden hole in the wall place that wouldn't even show up on Google if you tried to look for it. You know what I mean? But it exists. So that's a really good resource if you're getting started.
That is an awesome resource. I will absolutely link to it. And yeah, it is so interesting because I think that people who are like, oh, well, if this is not in my supermarket, I can't get it. And they might be surprised that like just down the road, like, like
Exactly.
1 kilometer down, there's actually this little shop where they can get everything they need.
Yes, 100%.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pai.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me. This was a fun conversation.